So how do you measure a nation's economy right in the middle of a massive crisis? Traditionally, it's been a bit like trying to navigate a hurricane using yesterday's weather report. But today, we're going to explore a pretty revolutionary new way to see an economy in real time, taking its pulse not just year by year, but minute by minute as a crisis unfolds.
I mean, really think about it. When a huge shock like a global pandemic comes along, governments, businesses, everyone, they need to know what's happening right now. Not last quarter, not last year. But the way we've typically measured economies is just way too slow for that.
That's it exactly. Official reports, they come out quarterly, sometimes even annually. By the time that data actually gets into people's hands, the situation on the ground has totally changed. It really is like looking in the rearview mirror to see where you're going. Policymakers are basically flying blind.
But what if you could see the storm as it was happening? Well, that's where this project, the IndiaPulse project, comes in. It's a completely new way of seeing things, a whole new way of measuring the economic health of one of the biggest nations on Earth.
So how do they do it? Well, instead of waiting around for those old, slow reports, this project uses data that's being generated almost constantly. We're talking about things like e-way bills, which are basically digital permits that track goods moving on trucks. GST, the national sales tax, shows us what people are buying in almost real time. Electricity usage is a fantastic proxy for production, and even demand for rural job programs tells us a ton about the job market. All of these data points, these are what we call high-frequency indicators. Think of them like individual heartbeats, and when you put them all together, you get a live EKG of the entire economy. It's detailed, it's immediate, and honestly, it's incredibly powerful. Okay, so what did this powerful new lens actually show us? Let's take a look at the story it told about India's economy during that huge shock of the COVID-19 pandemic back in 2020. So this timeline, built entirely from that high-frequency data, tells a really dramatic story. You can see that even before the major lockdowns, things were starting to weaken in February. Then April, that was the absolute bottom, the trough. But then, look, the recovery starts to kick in by July, and what's incredible is that by October, economic activity was already getting back to pre-pandemic levels. This chart of goods being transported just perfectly illustrates that V-shape. I mean, this is a key sign of manufacturing and commerce. You can just see the catastrophic dip when the lockdown hit, and then that unbelievably sharp and swift rebound. That's the famous V-shape recovery, visualized right there in the data.
And we see the exact same V pattern in what people were buying. GSD collections, which track spending across the country, they mirrored that manufacturing recovery almost perfectly. A little weakening in February, the absolute lowest point in April, and boom, a full recovery by October. It's just a remarkably clear picture of a national economy hitting a brick wall and then bouncing right back.
But here's the thing, that national picture is only half the story. The real magic of this kind of data is its granularity. We can zoom in from the entire country down to individual states, districts, and even neighborhoods. And what you find is a patchwork of very different local stories. I mean, just take electricity consumption. It's universal, and it's an unbelievably powerful real-time indicator. Just like the quote says, every single time a factory fires up its machines or a shop turns on its lights, it leaves behind a data footprint. A footprint that tells a story about economic life as it's happening. And you can apply this super detailed view to whole states. For example, if we zoom into Tamil Nadu, the data shows us the specific engines of its economy: vehicles, clothing, machinery, electronics, and footwear. This isn't just some vague summary, it's a detailed, data-driven snapshot. It could help policymakers figure out exactly which sectors need a hand.
Or check this out. This is a fascinating link they found in the state of Himachal Pradesh. By comparing data on infrastructure, things like roads and electricity, with the demand for the government's rural job program, a really clear pattern popped out. Areas with better infrastructure had a lower demand for welfare. So what does that tell us? Better infrastructure seems to correlate with better local employment. It's a huge insight.
And it gets even more granular. I mean, way more. In the state of Andhra Pradesh, researchers used electricity data to map economic activity down to a tiny 1-kilometer-wide hexagon. That's practically neighborhood-level insight. You can literally see which blocks have more farming versus more manufacturing, just by looking at how they use power. Imagine the possibilities for urban planning or targeted development.
So what's the big takeaway from all of this? Why does having this kind of detailed, real-time data matter so much? Well, it all comes down to the power of seeing the economy clearly, really and truly for the first time.
You know, when you can see with this level of detail, you can just make much, much smarter decisions. You can pinpoint exactly which districts or industries are struggling and which ones are thriving. You can target investment and help where it's needed most instead of just guessing. And you can build policies that respond to what's actually happening on the ground today, not what was happening 6 months ago.
And this really brings us to the final critical question. This kind of technology gives us an unprecedented ability to see and understand the complex machine that is our society. So now that we have this power, the real challenge is figuring out how to use it. If we can truly see our economy in real time, what are the most urgent problems we should turn this powerful new lens towards? What should we solve first?